I'm gonna put a band-aid on so you guys don't have to look at my giant wound. Hold on. Hey folks, welcome to the Barbarian's Horde. I'm the Nerdy Barbarian. Today we're looking at an American-made framelock from Idaho. How exotic. The Koenig Arius Gen 4. Like I said, this thing is made here in the United States in Boise, Idaho by Koenig Knives. It is a titanium framelock flipper with a pierced fuller. This one is in 20 CV, I think. Yeah, 20 CV. Subtle milling pattern here that looks kind of like, I don't know, like fabric, kind of like a sweater. We'll see that closer on Tabletop in a bit. Price and availability on these, they're pretty hard to find, sadly. The Gen 4 I think came out in like 2019 or 2020. So it's not like a brand new knife, but they've definitely developed a fan base in the last 5 years or so, and they're hard to find. At the time of recording, the mini version of this is available from Blade HQ, $705. That's what it is. The mini version of this is available at the time of recording, but I couldn't find the full-size Arius with a cursory search. I didn't dig for that long. But the mini is $705, I believe, and the full size is a little more than that, I think. Yeah, these are $700 to $800, depending on where you get them and if it's the mini or the big one. So be prepared to spend $7 or $8 if you find it in stock. If not, these things can run up $1,000. Don't pay that. We'll talk about that. But I mean, it's a good knife. Don't get me wrong. It's a good knife. It's probably okay at $7. Maybe we'll talk about it. Don't pay scalper prices for these. Find one in stock. Get on a wait list. Let's take this over to the Tabletop and get a look at it and talk about it a little more in depth. Guys, just before we get into this, will you please make sure you're subscribed and that you click like on the video down below. That'll help me a lot. I'm trying to get this off the ground, but I need to get some interaction before the algorithm takes me seriously. So if you like what you see, click like. If you don't like it, click dislike. I'm sure anything's better than nothing. Leave a comment down below if you have anything to say or have any questions, and I'll get back to you. Make sure you're following me on YouTube and Instagram and TikTok. I'm also on Facebook, but Instagram or TikTok is probably the better place to find me, at the Nerdy Barbarian. At any of those places, look me up. All right, this thing comes in a pretty nice box. Pretty heavy-duty magnetic latch. I like that. I don't have a huge opinion about boxes, but I don't know, when I buy a nice knife, I really like to see a nice box. The presentation is not everything, but it's not nothing either. I actually bought this without a box, so I went out of my way, got a hold of Koenig, and bought a replacement box because I really like having a box for all my stuff. Besides, if I ever decide to sell this down the road, it'll sell a lot easier with a box. So, luckily, I did get the card with it though. So, 20 CV burnished, pattern titanium, February 2023. This is on skiffs. Here's the factory bearings though. And to be honest, these are a little crappy. I mean, the bearings themselves feel nice, they feel smooth, but it's in a plastic cage. I thought that was a little weird for a knife of this price to be in a plastic caged bearing. For this kind of money, I usually expect to see something like a phosphor bronze cage or something. I think that's what they're using in knives like Herman's. I'll post a picture here in post so you can see what I'm talking about. Plastic bearings, I'm sure they work fine, but I expect to see those in a $50 Civivi, not in a $800 Arius. Here's the knife. It is, I mean, I subjectively think it's objectively beautiful. I've got this kind of what would you call it? Like a sweater weave pattern, I guess. I'll look up what they actually call this and I'll put it on the screen here, but it looks like weaved fabric, herringbone kind of a looking thing. Milled pocket clip. Looks like a T8 pivot, T8 lock bar insert, T8 body screws. I'll check that later, but again, it looks like T8s all around. That's nice. Captive pivot. We've got this kind of interesting dished design here. D-shaped pivot. Flip or blade hole opening. And the action on this is fast. It flips out, no problem. Reverse flicks, no problem. You're not going to be thumb flicking this, though, unless you do some real weird stuff and try to go, even then, straight out to the side. I can't even. Oh, I got it. Hey, look at that.
How about a little applause for the Waco kid?
No, I can't do it. So this is going to be a flipper or a reverse flicker, and it does either of those very well. This thing has a belt satin finish on the flats, but then it's got some kind of a burnished kind of a finish. I don't know what you'd call that. It's like blasted and stonewashed, but it's really reflective still on the hollow grind. It's got a really nice look to it, but it's kind of a fingerprint magnet. I really like this inlet they did here near the opening hole. It's relieved down there. It looks nice, it adds a little bit of depth. I always thought this was a nice touch too. The blade is thin, then it gets thick, and then it gets thin again as it goes in. That's a nice touch. That was not really necessary, and they just did that because it looks good, I think. Maybe it gives you a little more thickness here to catch with your finger when you're reverse flicking it, but I think the main reason they did it is just that it looks nice. Let's do a size comparison real quick. Spyderco PM2, Chris Reeve Umnumzon. If you're shopping in this price range, you probably know how big an Umnumzon is, and pretty much everybody knows how big a PM2 is, so this will probably be all you need. So they're all about the same size, 3.5-inch blade or whatever. The standard full-size pocket knife size knife full-size knife size. It feels lighter than the Umnumzon, I can already feel that. 4.9, so not a light knife. Umnumzon's just really heavy, 5.1. PM2, 4.0, although I swear it said 3.9 last time I weighed it. 4.0. 4.9, so kind of heavy. It's on the heavier end, but it's not bad. It doesn't bother me. Neither does an Umnumzon though, but I mean, if you're really sensitive to weight, maybe pass this one up. And this one, this is also a fairly heavy knife. Although, this one is weight relieved inside. I will tear this one apart in this video so you can get a look at the internals. On a lot of these higher end knives, a lot of the impressive machine work is only really appreciated from the inside of the knife, so I think I may start tearing these down in video more often. And maybe ease back on the actual cutting test footage because it kind of drags on and I'm not sure anyone really cares. But I mean, let's see if it'll cut a little bit at least. Today we're going to be cutting the best buys of 2024 from Cigar Aficionado. Yep, nice and slicey for such a big thick blade. Like butter. I say that and then I hung up. Yeah, nice and slicey. Pretty thick blade stock, but they've got a really deep hollow grind here. And this has a pretty polished edge on it. I honestly can't remember if I put that on there or if I just stropped it up after I bought it. Either way, it's fairly sharp. Yeah, it's shaving sharp for sure. And fairly slicey for its width because of that deep hollow grind. That's a nicely done hollow grind. I like that. I also love that this sharpening choil is so big here. It's big enough that you can use it to choke up if you want, but if you got fat fingers like me, you're gonna be flirting with the heel of that sharpened edge, so you need to be really careful if you do that. Again, most of the time, I just put my hand on the handle. That's how I am. I think hands belong on handles. That's why it's called a handle. So, but sometimes with these big choils, they kind of force you to choke up because if you don't, it'll get stuck in whatever you're cutting. Depending on what you're doing, you may have to choke up, but this is probably safer. You got a nice thumb ramp to land on here, but no jimping, so if you're sensitive to a lack of jimping, that's something to consider. I don't care. This is fine for me. Another thing that they've done here is they've created a landing zone for the flipper tab. If you can see this, you see how far apart the scales are here. Up here it widens out and it's dished. So the idea is to give you a little scooped out area for your finger to land on that's supposed to be more comfortable. This is a problem for me with this knife. I find that to be uncomfortable. It's much more comfortable back here for me, I would think. If it was just like this would be more comfortable because they're closer together. Yeah, they've scalloped it out for your landing, but it's so much wider now that you fall more into it, and I actually notice it more on this than I would if it was just like this on some of my other knives. I feel like I fall further down into that than I really need to. They probably should have just rounded the inner edges and left that alone, to be honest, but I mean, A for effort there. That's a nice attention to detail thing, but it doesn't really work for me. Maybe it'll work for you. The flipper tab is comfortable. It's nice and rounded off. It's got some jimping on there that works, but it's not aggressive enough to hurt, so that's nice. A lot of flipper tabs these days are a little sharp. This one is comfortable. The detent on this is good. It's tuned well for flipping and reverse flicking. I don't feel like I have to muscle it out when I reverse flick, which is the case sometimes when you got a snappy flipping action, so that's good. The detent ball location, right there, we are up against the ball when I unlock, and then right there, we're over it, and it'll fall shut. Not bad, not amazing, not bad. Yeah, I just popped back up. If you've seen my other videos, you know I'm kind of a stickler about the detent ball location. I wish they would just put it really close to the blade tang so I didn't have to worry about this ramp knocking me back up. This does feel like it has a slight detent ramp, but not much. Mostly they just took the corner out of that and gave it a little leg up. Not a long ramp like a Shiro, just a short ramp, but you don't have to move it too far. If you just drop it onto your thumb with the flipper tab, let it hit your thumb, then pull out, you're gonna be fine. It'll go right home, so that's good. But it's pretty close. It's almost like the Hinderer XM18, which I haven't done a video on yet. That thing, if you lift your thumb up at all on accident when you're taking it out after the flipper tab hits it when you're closing it, it's right back on the detent ramp and it's gonna open back up. This one doesn't do that. As long as you drop it on your thumb, it's gonna go home, so that's good. Practically no issues there. I'd like it to be a little closer to the tang, but not a big deal. It works fine. The fit and finish on this knife is fantastic. It has no blade play, no lock rod. I've never had it not lock up right. It locks up at about 20%, so fairly early, but a lot of people like that. I don't have a preference on that as long as it's not over half or 3/4 of the way. But yeah, that's good. The action is, like I said, nice and quick. It's drop shut, but the blade's fairly heavy, so that's kind of to be expected, especially on skiff bearings. Honestly, I'm not sure how the action feels with the factory bearings, so when I tear this apart to get some footage of the inside, I'm going to put the factory bearings back in and get a feel for that, because I got this and the previous owner had already put the skiffs in, so I'll try that also and I'll see what the difference is. But with the skiffs, this thing drops right shut. Flicks open fast and drops shut. It doesn't feel like the most luxurious action. It's not like a Herman or a Shirogorov or a Holt or something like that, or a Machine-Wise, where they just feel absolutely oiled glass slick. And even if they don't drop like a guillotine, they just if you've handled one of these knives, you know what I'm talking about. It's got a luxurious action. That sounds really weird, but that's the best way I can think to put it. This thing feels, I don't know, American. It does the job. It's tight, it's fast, and it slams home, and most people are gonna like that. But there's something rougher about it. It doesn't feel as refined as some of the other knives that people generally consider competition for this. This is a $700 or $800 knife. Personally, I don't think it's worth that. I think this is a really nice $500 or $600 knife. Definitely not an $800 knife. I'm not saying it's, okay, I shouldn't say it's not worth that. This thing is made in America by a small company. It's made perfectly. There's nothing wrong with it. Everything's done well. It's got a beautiful design. It's well executed. So maybe it is worth $800. It doesn't feel as refined as other knives that are available in that price range to me. You may disagree with that. I like it. It's a good knife. It's beautiful. It's fun to use. But it doesn't feel... It feels closer to something like a Chris Reeve than it does to something like a Shirogorov or a Holt or a Machine-Wise. So I would put like a Machine-Wise and a Holt in a tier above this, and I would put this down maybe somewhere around the Chris Reeve Hinderer XM18 territory. The action feels more like a Hinderer XM18 than it does anything else. Now that I think about that, it's very, very similar. I should probably not do that. Let's move that. Yeah, very similar action to a Hinderer XM18, except like you see that where it popped back up. Oh, I got it that time. But if you drop it and you move up at all, boop, it's gonna pop back in. That's annoying. Anyway, very similar feeling action to a Hinderer XM18, except the detent's placed better and the flipper tab's a lot more comfortable and snappier. So This is, in my opinion, a better knife than an XM18. But the XM18 is a really old design, so that's kind of to be expected. This is kind of a classic at this point, and we put up with a little more from it than we would from other knives. This doesn't have any glaring flaws the way that knife does, but this is not the subject of this video. I'll do a video on that later. But this doesn't have any glaring flaws. It just has, I don't know, it almost feels like it doesn't have personality. That seems rude to say, I don't know. This gives me Porsche 911 modern production kind of high-end sports car, low-end supercar vibes. It looks kind of like that. It's got the Koenig name thing going on. I know Koenigsegg is a different car company, but it looks more like a Porsche to me. The swoopiness, I don't know. This feels like a hot rod, like a muscle car. Something like this feels like a Ferrari. A Russian Ferrari. Maybe it's a Lada. No, this feels luxurious and refined. The Koenig just doesn't to me. It feels like a more refined Hinderer. And there's nothing wrong with that, that's fine. And admittedly, it's a lot closer in price to a Hinderer than it is to a Shirogoro Vastrum. This is a very overpriced knife also, but I absolutely love this knife. Fantastic knife. I'll make a video on that soon. Also, I've got a long list of knives I need to get recorded. But it's a good knife. It has great action. It has good fit to finish. I like that all the screws are the same size. Very well ground blade, perfectly centered. Great snappy action no matter which way you open it. I like this milled pattern, this woven fabric pattern they've got on here. It's comfortable in the pocket. The clip works well. It's not too hard to get in. Easy to get out. You got a lanyard hole if you want it. I don't care. Don't love this landing zone here. I wish they had not done that. That's about all on the use and carrying. Sharpening, easy, big old choil. I'm gonna go over to the bench and tear this apart, and let's look at the inside. Okay, if you guys are wondering what tools I use, it's probably the same thing most people use. I use these Weehaw bits. I use a standard bit driver, and I also keep these around. These are Weehaw, I don't know what you call these, flag handle screwdrivers. Because some knives I need to hold the back pivot while I take out the front, so it helps to have another set laying around. So when I do Chris Reeve knives, I need these Allen bits, hex bits. So I keep those around for mostly just Chris Reeve knives. All right, let's get into this. I'm thinking everything's a T8, so we'll start there. I'm gonna put a Band-Aid on so you guys don't have to look at my giant wound. Hold on. Okay, that's better. Sorry, I got stitches the other day. That'll be talked about in another video for another knife, the one I chopped myself with, but let's hide that so nobody gets too grossed out. I didn't think about it until just now, and I've already done the whole tabletop review, so sorry about that. Hope you didn't vomit. Yep, T8 pivot, T8 lock bar insert, T8 body screws. So that's nice. This will be a one-tool job since the pivot is captive, so let's just take this apart. And there's those Skiff Rocket Glide bearings. This is kind of what I was talking about earlier. I know I already put a photo in, but I think that's phosphor bronze they use for these cages. That's just a lot higher quality. I mean, and these bearings are what, like $12 for a set, so I'm not sure why Koenig cheaped out and put plastic caged bearings in this thing, but yeah, there you go, Skiffs. Skiffs are cheap, you can upgrade it yourself. Captive pivot, that's nice. Every knife should have that these days. This is another thing that a lot of companies are not doing yet, but they all should be doing. I'm glad to see Koenig is doing this. Maybe they're not doing this. All right, we'll have an example the other way around then. Everyone should be doing this now, but they're not. These bearings are ceramic. They're very hard, and they're riding right on titanium, which is soft, a lot softer than steel. A lot of high-end knives are coming with washers here now. They put a little thin washer in between the titanium and the ceramic, and that keeps things from wearing a groove in. Over time, you're going to wear a groove in from those ceramic bearings into the titanium, and that's going to cause you to have blade play. It's going to feel rough, and the blade's going to wobble side to side. No real way around it. If you have ceramic on titanium, you're going to get those grooves worn in, and that's just all there is to it. So kind of unfortunate to see that this knife is not running washers. I swear it looks like there's a line in there though. Maybe Let me make absolutely sure that there's no washer in this. Let me stick a magnet on it maybe. Yeah, it's looking like there's no washer. There's a line in the middle there. I think maybe that's just some Loctite residue or something. Yeah, so no washer. I'm thinking this is just titanium. A titanium race with ceramic bearings. Not the best thing in the world, but again, not that uncommon still, unfortunately. It really should be uncommon. People should stop doing that. It's like these new knives coming out, expensive knives from custom makers and semi-production knives coming out that still don't have a lock bar insert. That's another thing that I just think is inexcusable these days. McNeese is still doing that for $600+. I wish they would stop that. Gavco knives, they do that. I mean, lots of knives are still not putting a lock bar insert in. And a lot of knives, apparently, including Koenig, are still not putting a washer in between the ceramic bearings and the titanium. So, room for improvement there. But this is nicely machined. Weight relief pockets. Yeah, look, everything looks like it's nicely machined. Here's a pretty good tell. You can tell how well machined something is. Let me try to take this lock bar insert out, see if it'll come out, and see if it'll go back in without wiggle. Sometimes these things are a little too tight and you can't get them back in. And sometimes they're too loose and they wiggle around like crazy, unless you get the screw really, really tight. No wiggle. It's coming up. Yeah, came right out. That's nice. Okay, well done there. They machined that pocket perfectly. It fits in with absolutely no wiggle, but it comes right out without fighting it. I love to see that. Because this also doubles as a lock bar stop. Most knives now are coming with lock bar stabilizers, or lock bar stop, however you want to call that, over travel stop. And the common way of doing it these days is to build it into the lock bar insert. So you have a steel on steel interface here, but they all go ahead and put the tab there so it doubles as their lock bar stabilizer. I don't like lock bar stabilizers. I've never been in a situation where I've used so much adrenaline in closing my knife that I bent the frame over, like apparently Rick Hinderer experienced, and that's why he started putting it on his knives. I think maybe he's the one who came up with that, but don't quote me. I haven't found a need for that personally. I guess I can see where that would be justified, depending on what you're doing. But for me, a lot of the time I like to tweak my lock bar tension. And if you put a lock bar stabilizer in, I can't, because I can't bend it past where it's supposed to stop. This knife was perfect out of the box. I got it used, but it didn't look very used. It was perfect. I didn't have to tweak it. Lock bar tension was perfect, so not an issue here. But that's not always the case. Sometimes I like to be able to bend my lock bar out ever so slightly to take some tension off and make the action smoother, take a little bit of the detent strength out. Again, not needed here, but I could take or leave a lock bar insert. I mean, not a lock bar insert. There should be a lock bar insert. I can take or leave a lock bar stabilizer over travel stop. But yeah, that fits perfectly. Went back in no problem, came out no problem. Love to see that. The clip attaches from a screw on the inside of the scale, and that's a nice touch. That looks nice and clean. It's a T8. Okay, it is. The entire knife is a T8. Stop pin is set into the blade and rides in this pocket on the outside of the pivot. That's pretty cool. See 20 CV stamped there in the blade. No other markings other than Koenig right there. You can see the ramp here. There is a little bit of a detent ball ramp, but it's pretty shallow, and it wasn't giving me too many problems. Again, I'm not like a huge fan of detent ball ramps. I think you just break the corner, give me an easy way to get up over the edge, but I could do without the ramp probably. The reason I'm always complaining about the detent thing, you see where they've got the ball over here? That means before I can get on the ball, I have to rotate the blade all the way to the ball, which is here. Not bad on this knife. But if they put the ball closer to the outside of the lock bar, I'm going to be on it immediately. So the further towards the outside of the lock bar we can get the detent ball, the better. The shorter travel you'll have to be to get over it. They did a pretty good job here. It's not bad. Some knives do it better. A lot of knives do it worse, so I don't have any real complaint there. Backspacer looks nice. Yeah, nice. Well, it's got some kind of rough machine marks on the top. Or maybe that's just micro milling they left intentionally. It's kind of just lines, but I can see a lot of verticals in it too. I think this might just be a little unfinished looking. But again, I was a little hard on it earlier on the tabletop. This is a $700 knife, or it's supposed to be if you buy it retail. I think it's $700. Hey, future me, put the price here, table price. And in my head, I want to compare it to $1,000 knives, and that's really not fair. It's a $700 knife, and it feels like a $700 knife. It's built very well. I would say it's a step beyond a Chris Reeve, probably. But most of that is just because the Chris Reeve is an outdated design, honestly. I mean, I love them. They're some of my favorite knives, but they are from history times, for sure. This is an evolution. This is just better. So yeah, it's worth $700. It's built that well. So I was a little hard on it before. I take that back. It's not as nice as a Holt or a Hoghouse Model T or a Shirogorov, but it costs less than those, so that's to be expected. This kind of sits in a market hole, a niche that has been a little underserved. You know, you got the $500 range, and then between that and $1,000, there's not a lot there. In the American market, you got McNeese, which shouldn't be $600+. Those should be $500 also, I think. Or maybe Chris Reeve is just underpriced. Who's to say? I'm not in charge of the pricing. But this fits in that hole in the middle, so maybe this is a good place to be. $700, not a lot there to compete with, especially in the American market. All right, I'm gonna slap this back together, and then we'll wrap up. Now, wasn't that a story worth the hearing?
It was the first dozen times we heard it.
There's some things I especially like about this, like the quick action. It's fun on the skiffs anyway. I love that it has a flipper and a pierced fuller, so I can reverse flick it. It kind of bugs me when a knife is flip only. The more into like Shirogorov and Herman I get, the less that bothers me, but in general, if it's a flipper, I'd really rather it also have a hole in the blade or a fuller for me to flick. That just keeps me from getting bored. I like the way the milling is done. This textured fabric-y weave milling they've done on this is really nice. Really high-end looking touch. And it has just enough texture to keep the thing from feeling sweaty in my hand, but not so much that it's uncomfortable or really rough. It's subtle. It's not over the top. It's not a huge diamond pattern from Kunwu, though those are cool too. But it's this nice, subtle pattern that does the job it's designed to do and is in the background. They did a really good job with that. That's probably the highest class thing on the knife. The things I don't like is that, well, I just don't know if it's worth $700 or $800. It's got the good fit and finish you'd expect. There's nothing loose. Everything fits together well. It's well made, but I don't know. It doesn't feel like an $800 knife to me. It feels like a $600 knife. You know, I'd put it in the Chris Reeve Hinderer XM18 territory. But this is a smaller operation, I believe, so definitely smaller than Hinderer and Chris Reeve. They're going to have volume on their side. Koenig is a smaller team. They're going to have to charge more. That's just the way it is. I mean, I don't have any insider knowledge, but I doubt that they're going out of their way to screw people and they're price gouging on these. It just costs what it costs to make them, and a smaller company has to spend more money to make something like this, and that's the way it is. So if you want one, you're going to have to pony up. But personally, I think there's better ways to spend. Definitely $800. Like I said earlier, a Herman, it feels more refined. This is like a muscle car. That's great. You might want that. But the Herman's more like an Italian sports car. For the money, I think you can do better. But I think you'll like it too. It's a good knife. There's not really anything wrong with it. If you look at this and you just start drooling because the design is everything you want aesthetically, pull the trigger. You're gonna like this thing. You just gotta really, really like it for that price to be okay, I think. Like I said, it's a good knife. It's $500 good, $600 good, $7's pushing it, $8 is out of the question for me. But if you could find a used one in the $6-ish range, $6 to $7, sometimes they pop up for that. A lot of the time people try to get at least table or higher because they're rare right now. If you can get it for $6 or $7, you know, you'll probably like it. If the design speaks to you. Like I said, that's the most important thing about this. And for me, it looks cool. Looks like a 911 Porsche kinda. I don't know, the swoopiness of it. I'm glad to have experienced it, but I don't know if it'll stick around in my permanent collection for much longer. I may pass this one along because it just doesn't scream at me. And for me to keep a knife that costs this much money, I really need to be in love with it. And while I really like it, I don't know that I love it. So that's probably my final word on that, guys. Thanks for sticking around. Please like and subscribe. Leave a comment down there. That'll help the algorithm pick us up, carry us a little further than we otherwise would. There's a link to my Patreon down there if you're very full of coin. But if not, I just appreciate your time, guys. Thank you. Hope you come and watch the next one. See ya.